Jr. took his very last breath. He denied the victims were here to see him die.
Also tonight, the man executed for killing.
Not a happy day, a day she did not want to be here.
Barring any last-minute stays of execution.
They released a statement. They had the same sentiment. They said today is about relief.
Missing indictment. Carter argues that his ending sentence is void because an element of the offense of physical attack was missing from the charge in the fourth count of the indictment. The fourth count alleged that Carter purposely compelled Vader Prince to submit by force or threat of force in violation of the Ohio Revised Code Title 29, Section 2907.02 and against the peace and dignity of the state of Ohio. The state concedes that the indictment on the physical attack count is missing the engagement in physical conduct language, but argues that even if this court were to find this to be reversible error, only the fourth count of the indictment would be affected. Carter never objected to the indictment, and there is no indication that Carter was unaware of the charges against him. Crim.R7 provides that a statement may be made in ordinary and concise language without technical averments or allegations not essential to be proved. Carter vigorously defended against the charge of physical attack, challenging the state's forensic experts on evidence that supported the charge and even seeking appointment of his own expert to testify concerning the evidence of physical attack. Carter alleges that the error in the indictment is a fatal error, but this argument lacks merit. If the state seeks the ending penalty for a defendant who commits aggravated slaying, the indictment charging the offense must contain at least one of the specifications enumerated in RC 2929.04 A1 through 9. Carter had sufficient notice that he was charged with physical attacking Prince and was not prejudiced by the error in the indictment. Carter's first proposition of law is overruled. Carter argues that the trial court erred by failing to give lesser included offense instructions on aggravated slaying, aggravated robbery, and physical attack. The trial court denied these requests, as the Deem test established that an offense can be a lesser included offense if it carries a lesser penalty, cannot be committed without the lesser offense also being committed, and some element of the greater offense is not required to prove the commission of the lesser offense. Carter was indicted for aggravated robbery under RC 2911.01A1 and 2911.01A3, which states that no person can commit aggravated robbery without having a fatal weapon on or about the offender's person or under their control. The trial court did not err by providing a lesser included offense instruction, as theft is not a lesser included offense of aggravated robbery. Carter argues that there was no physical conduct in the victim's anus, but instead presented a theory that semen was deposited on the outside of the body and seeped into the anus. The evidence strongly supported the state's theory that Carter's sperm was placed there through the insertion of Carter's private part into the victim's anus. The distinguishing element of aggravated slaying and slaying is the commission of a slaying during a felony. In this case, the evidence clearly supported the commission of a physical attack, and it was not an error to fail to instruct on the lesser included offense of slaying as it related to the aggravated robbery offense. Carter's request for a voluntary manslaughter instruction was properly denied as the evidence, including the victim being knifed 18 times, fully supported a purposeful slaying. Carter's second proposition of law is overruled. Competency evaluation and trial proceedings. Carter claims that the prosecuting attorney's misconduct denied him a fair trial. However, trial counsel did not object to any of the alleged misconduct. The prosecutor's comments during the closing argument did not deny Carter a fair trial. Carter argues that the prosecutor erroneously characterized the defendant's explanation of why he went to Prince's house on the night of the slaying as absolutely absurd. He also bolstered the testimony of Dr. Cox regarding the bleeding in the victim's brain. Carter also alleges that the prosecutor committed misconduct when he asked Major James Phillips about who issued the search warrants to obtain blood samples from Carter. The test for prosecutorial misconduct is whether the remarks are improper, and if so, whether they prejudicially affected substantial rights of the accused. Even assuming the prosecutor's comments were improper, they did not deny Carter a fair trial. Carter has failed to show that any actions by the prosecutor denied him a fair trial, and his third proposition of law is rejected. Carter argued that his paranoid personality prevented him from trusting his lawyers, leading to a competency hearing. The trial court found Carter competent and denied a defense request for further examination. Dr. Stanley Palumbo opined that Carter understood the nature of the proceedings against him and did not suffer from any mental disorder that would interfere with his ability to participate in his defense. Carter entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, and the court appointed 3 experts to examine him for sanity at the time of the offense. During Dr. King's interview, Carter exhibited bizarre behavior and indicated he wanted to slay his attorney, Tony Consaldane. Dr. Palumbo and Dr. Alcorn also examined Carter's relationship with his attorney, finding him competent to stand trial. The trial court found Carter competent to stand trial, stating that distrust and/or hostility with an attorney does not necessarily equate with competence. Carter asked the court to disregard the opinions of the experts, but a review of the proceedings does not warrant that action. Carter also argued that trial counsel did not vigorously pursue the issue of competence, arguing that they should have testified at the competency hearing concerning Carter's inability to cooperate with them. The trial court's findings of fact failed to support Carter's claim that the court's decision was unreasonable, arbitrary, or unconscionable, and there was no abuse of discretion. Challenges to ending sentence. Carter argues that his ending sentence should be vacated due to the ineffective assistance of counsel, inadequate appellate review, constitutional amendment, and preclusion of mercy in the ending penalty process. He cites the failure of the defense counsel to file a motion to dismiss or correct the error in the 4th count of the indictment concerning the charge of physical attack, which he believes was not done. Carter also alleges that the counsel should have pursued the testing for use in the penalty phase during the competency determination, which he finds speculative and not appropriate for direct appeal. Carter also challenges the constitutionality of limiting direct review of ending penalty cases solely to the court, which is rejected on the authority of State v. Smith in 1997. He also argues that Ohio's preclusion of the consideration of mercy in the ending penalty process violates the state and federal constitutions, which is rejected on the authority of Lorraine, 66 Ohio ST 3D at 417, 613 NE2D at 216, and Hicks 43 Ohio ST 3D at 78, 538 NE2D at 1037. The court has not erred by refusing to instruct on mercy, and Carter's argument that the court has never analyzed the ending penalty statute under the Ohio Constitution is rejected. The court's decision to overturn the ending penalty scheme based on the appellate review process in Ohio is based on the United States Supreme Court's precedent. Sean Carter, a former prisoner of war, has filed a lawsuit seeking a stay of his execution and a moratorium on executions in Ohio. He argues that the ending penalty is unconstitutional under the federal and Ohio constitutions due to the cruel and unusual punishment methods used, such as electrocution or lethal injection. However, the court and the United States Supreme Court have previously held that execution by electrocution does not violate the federal and Ohio constitutions. Carter claims that Ohio's capital sentencing scheme violates the federal and Ohio constitutions is also rejected. Carter's independent sentence review will consider his arguments, which include the nature and circumstances of the offense, the state's proof of physical attack and robbery, and the fact that Carter was the principal offender. The court finds that most potential mitigating factors are inapplicable, and the only statutory mitigating factors appropriate for the review are Carter's youth and other relevant factors. The court concludes that Carter's case is not a case where the United States Supreme Court has ruled that the ending penalty is unconstitutional under the 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Carter's history, character, and background provide evidence in mitigation of the ending sentence. His mother was psychotic and had no biological father, leading to a lack of attachment and verbal skills. Carter showed improvement after being placed with a foster mother, Ida McGee. However, McGee was unable to provide a permanent home for Carter and he was returned to McGee in 1988. Carter was eventually placed permanently with the Carters in 1989. Clinical psychologist Sandra B. McPherson evaluated Carter and testified in the penalty phase. She found that Carter had an antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder with psychopathic features, which were serious conditions. Carter did not have any true capacity to relate to other human beings in an interdependent or mutual or self-enhancing fashion, and he did not have a mental disease or defect that substantially affected his conduct. Carter's history and background, including his psychological problems, are entitled to some weight and mitigation. When each aggravating circumstance is weighed against these mitigating facts, it outweighs them beyond a reasonable doubt. A proportionality review of similar cases has been conducted, and nothing in Carter's case indicates that his ending sentence is disproportionate to those in Phillips or Mason. Finding the ending penalty appropriate and proportionate, the sentence of ending is affirmed. The judgment of the Court of Common Pleas is hereby affirmed. The slaying is now planned for Wednesday, January 22, 2025. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.